So today, we are going way, way back. We're talking about the actual blueprints for civilization itself. We're going to look at how two of the world's very first great powers, Mesopotamia and Egypt, figured out how to organize themselves, and in doing so, built societies that would literally shape history for thousands of years. All right, let's get into it.
I mean, think about it for a second. How are empires born? It's a massive question, one that you can see popping up all through human history. Is it about pure conquest? Is it about divine right? Does it start with a bunch of cities that band together? Or does it need one single unified state from the get-go? How do you get from scattered villages to a powerhouse empire?
Well, the ancient world basically gave us two foundational and very, very different answers to that question. We're going to dig into those original models by looking at Mesopotamia and Egypt. These were two giants who rose up right at the dawn of history, and each one took its own unique path to power.
Okay, first, let's head over to the Fertile Crescent, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, Mesopotamia. It wasn't one unified place to begin with, not at all. It was a land of competing cities and really competing ideas about how to live and who should be in charge. And you can see this fundamental split right from the start. Down in the south, you had the Sumerians. These guys were the pioneers of the independent city-state. Each city was basically its own little world. But up in the north, the Akkadians seemed to have a different vision from day one, a single, unified territory under one rule. So you've got two completely different systems right next to each other.
So what was life like in one of these Sumerian city-states? Well, forget the palace. Power was in the temple. The local temple was the absolute heart of everything. It wasn't just for worship, it was the bank, it was the government, it was the cultural center, it was the whole shebang. Your entire life revolved around that one building.
But, this system of separate, independent cities, it has a weakness. It makes the whole region pretty vulnerable. For centuries, these cities kind of did their own thing, sometimes working together, sometimes fighting. But a brand new model of power was about to march down from the north, and it was going to change absolutely everything.
And here he is, Sargon of Akkad. Around 2300 BC, this absolute powerhouse of a ruler from the north swept down, conquered the southern city-states, and forged them all into the world's very first true empire. He basically replaced the authority of all those individual temples with the authority of a single throne. A totally new era had just begun.
Now, let's jump over to our second case study, because while all this was happening in Mesopotamia, a completely different picture was taking shape along the Nile. This civilization was following a whole other blueprint for building a society.
So, a bit like Mesopotamia, early Egypt was also divided. But the split was much simpler, really just based on geography. You had Lower Egypt, which was the huge, fertile Nile Delta up north, and then you had Upper Egypt, that long, skinny river valley stretching way down south. Two lands, two peoples, two crowns.
And then, around 3000 BC, so centuries before Sargon, a ruler from the south, a guy named Menes, comes in, conquers the north, and unites the two lands into one. And this wasn't just another battle, this was it. This was the birth of Egypt as we know it, kicking off the first dynasty that would rule for thousands of years.
And this right here, this is the crucial point, the real game changer that sets Egypt apart. Out of this unification comes this incredible idea of divine monarchy. The king wasn't just a powerful ruler, he was a god walking on earth. The pharaoh was seen as the living, breathing version of the sky god Horus. His authority didn't just come from his army, it came straight from the heavens.
So let's just pause on that for a second, because this is the core difference. In Sumerian Mesopotamia, power was an institution. It was the temple. In Egypt, power was a person, the divine pharaoh himself. One system was centered on a place you worship, and the other was centered on a person to worship.
So what we have are two foundational models for building an empire. One is built by hammering together scattered cities with military force. The other is built by joining two lands under a single godlike ruler. Let's break that down side by side.
Okay, let's really look at this. On one side, Mesopotamia. It starts as this patchwork of competing city-states, each focused on its local temple. It gets unified by a conqueror, Sargon, who creates a big territorial state. Then you look at Egypt. It starts as just two kingdoms, and the whole culture is centered on the divine pharaoh. It's unified way earlier by Menes, who sets up a divine monarchy. You really couldn't have two more different starting points, leading to two totally distinct ways to rule.
So why does any of this ancient history matter today? I mean, this was thousands of years ago, right? Well, it matters because these weren't just two stories that ended back then.
These two blueprints, the Mesopotamian way and the Egyptian way, they created a legacy that would echo across the entire ancient world.
Seriously, think about it. Pretty much every empire that came next in the ancient Near East, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Hittites, even the Israelites, they were all wrestling with these two big ideas. Should a king rule through pure strength and conquest, the Sargon model, or should his power come from a divine mandate, like the pharaoh? These two models became the fundamental language of power for millennia.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. Which model was truly the more powerful force in building the ancient world? Was it the raw military might of the conquering hero? Or was it the spiritual, undeniable authority of the divine king? The answer, of course, is complicated, but one thing is for sure. These two blueprints, born in Mesopotamia and Egypt, laid the very foundation for how we even think about the idea of an empire.